Ladies and gentlemen, we got the first review of the 10-year anniversary, and we're looking at the new Sentry uniform, which everyone was hoping would take us out of the null meta. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case, and I think in part it's because there's no Thunderbolts team-up collection, but that's just my own personal speculation. But despite some pretty hefty changes to his second skill and some pretty substantial buffs there, and a cool fifth skill that isn't quite as nice as the Void on Darkness Unleashed or Darkness Merged, there just really isn't enough for Sentry to, reassert himself. I think this uniform is better, and I think for completionists and stuff like that, like, the old adage of, like, the newest uniform is always the best. I think this still applies, but for a lot of people that are just looking for value, I don't think you're going to find it here. And if you have Darkness Merged, I think you might just have to sit on your hands and wait to see what is coming next, because this is just not moving the needle enough. Now, his base rotation for the PvE portion that we're going to do is the same. It's 4 delay 5-3, and you're going to get about 80 hits out of that, or 70 to 80 hits, depending on how fast you cancel it. So that's basically the same as before. It's 4 delay with the old uniform, 5-3, same kind of thing there. So the playstyle is the same. The hit counter is actually worse with the newer uniform, but I think the damage on each individual skill is better. But there is just not enough to really, move the needle. But we're going to be doing a couple tests here. We're going to jump into some PvP. We're going to jump into some PvE. And I'm going to show you how he performs here. We're going to be using this double support team. And I'm just going to queue up against the top 3. And then we're going to swap uniforms. And we're going to queue up again against the top 3. And just see how he performs fully on auto, same build. This is a brilliant greed build. And yeah, unfortunately, from what I've seen, a lot of players are just reporting the same things. That Sentry just feels marginally better. That he doesn't feel like, you're really getting a huge jump. And on the one hand, that's good because he did just get a uniform last year. And so to see a massive jump year over year for a native tier 3 does put a large strain on the player base to keep up with these very, very expensive uniforms. On the other hand, having a very, very expensive uniform that doesn't get an upgrade that's meaningful is also kind of a tough pill to swallow. From the limited testing that I have been able to do with him that has proven fruitful, what I've seen is he seems to be a little bit better versus everyone else, but a little bit worse against Silver Surfer. Now, that is also, that can also just be kind of anecdotal, so your mileage may vary on that. But I do find that with decreasing the number of hits but increasing the damage of those hits, Sentry does make himself a little bit more susceptible to reflect damage. Now, he's doing pretty well here despite killing himself once to Silver Surfer. We're going to see how he does, but this is a double support team, so keep in mind this is kind of like as good as it gets for Sentry. And this may be what you're looking at, the future of playing Sentry, where you can no longer sort of just slot him in. If you really want him to perform at maximum value, like Null, you're going to want to pair him with a double support lineup. I don't know, but I do think it's fair to note that for Null, his best performance is when you give him Agent Venom, when you give him, Colossus or Shuri, or you give him like these other top-tier level supports. And maybe that's what it's going to take for Bob to be able to match up with him. Now, one interesting thing here is with Hela, you're going to see these sort of like inverted mirror matches where we're both using Bob. I'm going full in on the buffs, whereas other Bobs are going in with buffs versus heroes. And you're going to see it's actually very, very potent. I used it in the team battle arena in yesterday's video. This can be extremely effective, but of course it has 0 value versus Null. So it's a very, very polarizing team that doesn't necessarily, lead you to fruitful results because it's very easy to sort of pick that team apart and just swap over to villains. And then the Sentry has basically 0 buffs. Now, we were able to clean sweep the first 2 teams. And then the third team we lost to pretty much immediately when Sentry pulled up, when the Hela buffed Sentry pulled up. Now we'll see how Darkness Merged performs. Again, I expect similar results. I don't expect it to be exactly the same, but I do expect similar results. There, we actually got debuffed. We got incapacitated. That's very rare, but it does happen from time to time. But yeah, we can see how the new Sentry performs versus the old one. Still gets the one shot with the second skill, which is kind of part of the course here. And now we're going to see how they duke it out. I believe my Sentry with the new Bob uniform didn't die once against this team. He only died once against the Silver Surfer on the second team, but that is the only major change thus far in the performance. Now, we are using Winter Soldier Striker. This is not ideal for him. It's just who I happen to put on him after swapping around. But yeah, you can see the performance. It's a little bit worse if you're grading the performance with a very tight scale. It is worse since he technically died, but you still end up getting the W. So yeah, it's just, this is, again, in my opinion, a uniform that improves on degrees, but not on like massive shifts. And so it can be a little bit disappointing. Now, as you can see there, gets the kill, doesn't die to reflect. Will he die to reflect with the follow-up? He does die to reflect on the follow-up. This was identical to what happened to the first Sentry, and he actually dies again. So this is a big change. I do want to run this one back to see if he performs better on a follow-up. Queuing up here against the same team again. Let's see how Sentry performs. Gets the same initial result. Is he going to kill himself to reflect off the bat? He does. Okay, so it's very, very similar to before, but will the wake up be the same? It's not. He actually gets the kill. He actually does bounce back here, but he doesn't do any damage to Wolverine, and this time he dies. So yeah, this is probably a lot closer. Wow, it's a ton of reflect damage there from Colossus. Finally doing something, Colossus. Jeez, remember when Colossus used to get wins for us in PvP? So yeah, I think against characters like Wolverine, Adam, I think you are going to see a decent improvement in his performance. But I think versus certain other teams, or in certain matchups, you're going to feel like it's basically identical. So I think that's really the big issue for Sentry, is that there's an inconsistency, and his performance across the board is not better. It's just versus certain opponents that it is better. But I think that also has to do with the supports. Now, we do get obliterated regardless. So yeah, I think from a PvP point of view, for those of you that are very heavily into PvP, you do want to pick up the newest uniform. But for those of you who are looking for value, if you did get Darkness merged, I think you can, at least for now, you can pass on this uniform. Another thing I want to point out is that with the new Thunderbolts uniform, they did not give him the Thunderbolts tag. They also did not give him any sort of Thunderbolts ability or any, like, they didn't give him any other tags, but they didn't give him the Thunderbolts tag. So even though US Agents Lead, which is already in the game, does feature the Thunderbolts, the Thunderbolts reference and has the Thunderbolts tag, it does not apply to Bob. So you can see there his lead buffing all Thunderbolts allies attack and HP. I was thinking maybe there's going to be another Thunderbolt that provides other buffs like debuff cleanse and maybe like damage reduction or something like that. And then you would pair US Agent Lead with this other debuff cleanse thing guy and then Bob and make like a Thunderbolts team. But they didn't give Bob the Thunderbolts tag, so I don't know. One more thing I do have to address, and I will have a second video out today about Timeline Quest, but in the Timeline Quest, there will be down the line a quest that requires you to craft a serum. Now, you're going to get these items from other quests, the serum data. And once you have 5 of the serum data, you can go to the event craft, and you can see here with 4, I have 2 right now, but with 4, you can craft the anti-void serum. Now, again, this is just like Netmarble's take on their speculation on what the movie could be about. They're sort of creating like an alternate universe, just like the Legendary battles where they create like an alternate, ending to the movie or whatever. And in their alternate ending, the Thunderbolts craft this anti-void serum and they use it on Bob to get rid of the void. This, although I initially suspected during the live stream, maybe this is a clue that they could be dropping a seasonal, like a synergy uniform for Sentry that's a void uniform. I kind of doubt it. Now, it's still possible. I don't think it's a 0% chance that we get a synergy uniform for Sentry, but it's not that likely. And again, nothing in the crafting. This has nothing to do with a synergy uniform. This is just for the Timeline Quest, just to be clear. The only reason why I'm still holding out hope that we may get a synergy uniform for Sentry, or they may update his uniform, is because he doesn't have the Thunderbolts tag. And I think it's very odd that he doesn't have the Thunderbolts tag because it's a Thunderbolts update and the other characters are Thunderbolts. So yeah, to me, it's just a little bit odd. Now, it is true that the other characters released, in this case, Alexei, Red Guardian, and Yelena, do have the Thunderbolts tag. So I do want to point that out, that maybe they're trying to build a separate team separate from Bob. But yeah, it is what it is. Taking a look at the PvE side of things, we're going to be using a Brilliant Greed for all of this testing. So this is not meant to illustrate how high you can climb with Sentry, but more so just to illustrate how he performs. Now, we're going to do the same rotation for both builds. It is a 4 delay, 5 cancel 3, and then you can splash in the 2 and the 1 later on, and I'll play out the 6 when he gets it. But we're just going to go through 1 minute of this footage, or maybe even 30 seconds, depending on how low the damage is, just so you can get as clear an idea as possible of what he can do. And the reason why we're going to a high stage is so that we can eliminate the sort of convergence of damage that he would get from just doing so much damage to a low stage, where it would basically blur the blur the differences between the uniforms because they're just so close together, because they're just both blowing up the boss. Now we're actually gonna have to co-op here because the lasers have started, but that's okay. We end up dodging it both. He's quite tanky, as you can see. A couple of times Kang has tried to one-shot me. I might have called this stage null. But we get down to about 49 bars. It's a little bit under a minute. It's a little bit less than a minute, but we get to about 49 bars. Also keep in mind, this isn't the best team for energy projection, but I don't have Dick Rider transcended, so I can't use him in place of either Cyclops or Victorious. But we're going to go ahead now with the new uniform. Same rotation, 4 delay cancel, 5 cancel 3, and then we splash in the 2 and the 1. It's possible that his tier 4 charges up faster. I'm not 100% sure. It seemed like maybe it did. But actually the damage might be a little bit better. I think maybe it charges up faster. I didn't notice this before, but I'm noticing it now when playing. It seems like his tier 4 charges faster. Am I crazy? We did take damage, but less damage. We're going to co-op here again to dodge the lasers. We did take a bunch of damage from that, and he's too far away from me, so yeah, that was unfortunate. But actually, you're getting the first hint that he's better. Yeah, he is better. Wow. I didn't test on a high enough stage before, but we got down to about 47 bars, 47 and change. I've gone too far now, but I'm actually impressed. He's definitely doing more damage. We got down to 47 bars, which was about 2 bars better, and we lost damage because Kang dashed so far away from us that we were out of range to continue our rotation. So I actually think this uniform would have been about 3 bars faster. Now, again, I don't want to be like, oh my god, guys, this seals the deal. It's definitely like a must-buy uniform. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is I'm surprised because in my other testing that I did on the live stream a few days ago, we tested on a lower stage, which was my mistake, but the testing was essentially the same. His performance seemed identical. But now what I'm seeing is, it seems like his tier 4 charges faster, but I may be wrong about that. I would have to go back and watch the footage. It's very hard to talk and play and pay attention to this stuff in real time. And then secondly, he is definitely doing more damage. There's no doubt about it. I'm doing more damage. And with everything else being the same, it pretty much has to be the uniform. Now, it's possible I wasn't paying full attention to the greed procs. It's possible that maybe with the darkness merged Sentry, the greed procs delayed for some reason, but that would be down to hit count, and the old Sentry actually has more hits on his rotation than the new Sentry. So that wouldn't really make sense. Like, it's not like the rage proc, or sorry, the greed proc gets triggered from critting or anything like that. It's just it just triggers. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. If we test, if we test the old uniform, instead of 80 hits or 85 hits, I believe the old uniform has over 100 hits on the combo, the 4 delay 5 into 3. I believe it has closer to 100 hits. Yeah. So it has like 15 to 20 hits more. So I don't really have any explanation for that other than the new uniform is better for PvE. So yeah, I think overall it is better, and I don't want to leave you with sort of lingering doubt, but unfortunately I think that is the result of a uniform for a native tier 3, the second uniform for native tier 3. I think unfortunately the devs made this one a little bit too strong in the sense that they couldn't really go too much higher from here, otherwise he would be utterly broken. And I think it's more to do with the supports, because I think when you strip away the supports for Null and you strip away the supports for Sentry, I think this new Sentry does outperform Null without any supports. And we actually tested that in a previous video a few months ago with Sentry versus Null with no supports, and Sentry was actually pretty close, and it was this Sentry. So I do think this is an upgrade. Is it a big enough upgrade for most players? Maybe not. And for those of you saying, well, I'm not going to play Sentry in PvE, then the PvE performance doesn't really matter then in that case. But he is very easy to play, he is very tanky, and for some people, that does matter. So yeah, overall, I would say this uniform is definitely a toss-up. You can call it a brand new category, we can just make it up on the spot now. I think this is a toss-up. For some players, they're definitely going to grab it, they like it, they think it's enough of an upgrade, they use Sentry so much that it's kind of a no-brainer, even if it's just a 5% upgrade. But then, for the other hand, players are going to look and say, I'm not spending thousands of crystals for a 5% upgrade. And that I can totally understand, because he's still universal, he's still a hero, he's still human. Nothing has fundamentally changed about the character or where you can play him, just that his performance is, you know, somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10% better. Whether that's worth it or not to you is your choice, is up to you. Hopefully this video has been illuminating. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the content. We'll have tons more, so keep it locked on the channel, and have a good day. Take care.